we have an issue coming together with like minds? And when I say like minds, I'm encompassing a lot of things, not just being aware of problems, but being aware of our need to come together out of love. Because there's a lot of people in the conspiracy research community that don't know anything about love, that don't know anything but fear. It's a sickness. There is rampant mental illness right now in those that claim they are awakened. You can see it in their Facebook posts. Fear, doom, gloom, and not even one single attempt or post to free themselves because they don't believe they can free themselves. Go back and look at some of the comments on my YouTube channels. Look at all of these victims that want to attack someone just because I'm living outside of a cage. And I appreciate those comments because it's really gotten me to think about how fucked up some of the thinking is out there, and how brutal and cruel people can be to others simply because they look different or they're living a different lifestyle. What is it about those of us that are aware of these things that prevents us? Here's what I think, and I'm just sharing my perspective because I know there are some people that are listening to the words that are coming out of my mouth. Because you want to understand, you want to evolve, you want to grow, you have the ears to hear and you have the eyes to see. And I salute you for that. I think the problem is we get so overwhelmed with all of the negative information, in particular about local governments taking control of resources, corporations taking control of resources, privatization. We read about fluoride in the water. And as I've seen from other comments, there actually is a very unfounded, unprovable, undocumented belief that fluoride is in the entire world's water supply, in every municipal county in the United States, even though we read more and more news headlines about local city councils that have voted to remove fluoride from their water, even though there are millions of people in this country that get their water from a well, that get their water from mountain runoff. And yet people in the city that are aware of all these conspiracy-related things, they may not know that if they spent their whole life, in a city, and I've never really camped for more than a few days. I meet people all the time that tell me they have never camped in their lives. That is domestication to the max. 111%. And so when I travel and I experience new things and I uproot myself from my comfort zone, I am gaining knowledge and experience in different aspects of my being, my intellect, and my spirit, which is a lot more than some of the experiences that I've had in the city, even though they were great and I talked to a lot of people and I was on the air. It really doesn't compare with the amount of freedom that I feel inside doing what I'm doing, even though I'm traveling, even though I'm still looking for a home this winter, even though I'm broke most of the time. There's been a newfound freedom inside of me that is never going to go away, that I always will feel in my heart, this appreciation for nature to such a degree in a way that I've never felt before. So I honestly think that one of the major problems that so-called truthers have is their ability to believe in themselves and their ability to live outside the cage, to grow their own food. We'll get into specifics later on, because this is going to be a series of videos, and I'm going to go back to the coffee shop. I'm going to sacrifice 20 minutes of my time, more than that, to walk to the coffee shop and upload these videos, because it's very important people think about these things, because things are moving very, very fast. So it's very important for you to realize that some of this thinking about what you can't do is flawed. A lot of some of that thinking that I've had has been reversed through the experience of actually doing it. And no one can take it away from me, but it's interesting to see some of you guys out there that want to take it away from me. Very telling. Thank you. Thank you very much. And a lot of conspiracy research people that are unspiritually fit will attack others. Not just not believe in themselves, but they will attack others that are choosing to do something that they, in fact, don't have the balls or tits to do. So it's very, very interesting. So there's a mindful way and an unmindful way to go about creating your own community. And I want to hit on the basic points. First of all, you want to start small. A lot of us have these grandiose ideas. We have to have this, we have to have that. What's most important is that you stay alive. and luxuries, things of that nature, that comes second. Survival comes first. But as soon as you get through surviving, you need to work towards thriving, self-sufficiency, growing your own food, maybe having your own well, having your own free energy source, be it solar, wind, or other. By the way, both of those are heavily utilized in the San Luis Valley. San Luis Valley of South Central Colorado has more people living off solar than anywhere else in the United States. You can learn more about that on Wikipedia. Just look up San Luis Valley. I've also seen more wind generators than I've ever seen before, and there's a couple wind generator farms in the San Luis Valley because, like I said earlier, the winds can get up to 80 miles an hour, perhaps even more than that, but usually it ranges between 40 and 80. So when it comes to going off the grid, developing your own independent community, you want to surround yourself with people that you know will have your back. And what's very important is that you identify the weak links in your group. Now, in terms of a group, you want to start small, if not just start by yourself and develop a group one by one by one. And even though there's power in numbers, the more people that are around you in a community, whether it be a larger community or your own independent community or a community you're a part of, not something you own, but something that you're a member of, a contributor of, the more people, the more problems, the more drama, the more resources, unless you have people that are spiritually fit enough to what? Drum roll, please. To respect each other. The greatest downfall of those that currently live in parts of the San Luis Valley, especially the area that I was alcoholism, blackout drinking. You know, the whole DUI lifestyle, you know, drinking all night and then almost getting yourself and your friend thrown into the river because it's icy. I have a memory of someone very drunk taking me on a drive very late at night in the winter, and we were stuck all night because we were stuck on a rock because he was driving on his Jeep and he's going up the hill and he's going towards the river and he's almost blind because he can't see because he's drinking so much. That could have been a threat to my physical safety when you're going up a hill. I mean, if you're getting stuck on a rock, how could you possibly not make a wrong turn and just drive off the cliff? And the other factor setback is intense, dark, negative energy that one may harbor towards their neighbor. It's the opposite of community. It's stay away from me. Don't talk to me. You're different. What can I get out of you? That's, for the most part, the mentality that lives in the desert region where I was for 10 months. What you need is a balanced group of individuals, small at first, that have a wide, diverse amount of skills. Skills like construction, skills like gardening, skills like being able to mediate dangerous situations, skills or abilities that relate to the spiritual realm. It wouldn't be bad to have someone that's a little bit intuitive in your group that's tied into source, that keeps their consciousness on source, that feels, at least in their own mind, close to spirit. It would help to have people that know how to cook food. It's amazing how many people don't know how to cook food, that live in these dense population centers, that eat out all the time. And when they do eat at home, and myself included, you know, how many times did I buy ice cream, chips, soda, and frozen pizza? Just because I could. Hell, I can cook a stir fry. I can cook a mean stir fry. I can bake my own bread. I can make hummus. I can make Afghan kebabs. I can make pasta. I can make great Italian food. I can make great tacos and Hispanic food. I love fajitas. But there's many times where, given the option to take an easier, softer route, I've spent more money either at the restaurant or I've bought something at the store that I didn't have to make, that I could just cook, and I never, even in those cases where you're spending more and you're taking the easy way out, I never felt satisfied on a nutritional level. I still felt depleted, and thus when we feel depleted from true nutrients and enzymes, then we tend to eat more. And for some of us, we become obese. I don't think I could become fat if I tried to, if a gun was put to my head, but I can definitely get really, really sick, really, really tired, and really, really depressed if the food is not of a high quality. So if you have a number of people in your community, you want to have a diverse amount of skills so all your bases are covered. Having someone on site that knows free energy technology. Now, there are chunks of land in probably most states in this country that are affordable, that a community could potentially live on, but there are building codes to deal with, and there are city ordinances to deal with. And a lot of areas in this country, they don't want large groups of people congregating, living together. And that's where the building codes come in. Oh, you can't have this many people on this particular plot. You don't have your own septic tank. You haven't given us thousands of dollars. You haven't paid the piper. You haven't paid your share fair. You haven't given us some of your blood, so we're not going to let you be free. That's how it is in some areas in rural Oregon. There's a place near Redmond, or right outside Bend, Oregon, that has a similar ordinance preventing people from living on the land. That doesn't exist where I've been staying in the San Luis Valley. A large community could flourish there, but so far it's still a very unknown part of the country. Now, there are building codes and there are fees that people are expected to buy, but it depends on what you're doing. But someone could get started and get set up for less than $1,000. It may be $2,000, depending on what you're doing, the size of your home, whether or not you have a septic tank, whether or not you're going to drill a well. So all of these things need to be taken into account. But for now, that particular area where I've been staying is the most feasible for something like that. Unfortunately, there isn't a community that's already there. What there are people that live there on their own plots, on their own 5 acres, and they're spread apart from their neighbor, most of them by several miles or more. Sometimes it's less than a mile. But for the most part, people are spread out, and they want it to remain that way, and they don't want new people coming into that area. Well, unfortunately for the people of that area, you don't own all of that land, despite the inner imperialistic entity inside of you that thinks you own all the roads and thinks all of these things. And I can appreciate wanting to be somewhere that's quiet, but with the way things are going right now, some of those people that are out there that are very disconnected from current events, they're going to need other people other than themselves at some point when their welfare check is cut off, when they don't have enough money for gas to go truck the water into their home, if something happens with food stamps and you can't go to Alamosa, you can't go to La Jara, you can't go to Antonito for your food. In a situation like that, growing your own food or homesteading, having your own cattle, having your own chicken, having your own goats, see all that stuff, and for some people, pigs and rabbits. And then, of course, there's growing food. A lot of people don't know this, but quinoa is a superfood. It has all 8 amino acids. It's a complete protein. And we need complete proteins. There are very poor protein options that a lot of us have available. Quinoa is something that is, the supply is running out. The United States consumes 90% of the quinoa that's coming out of Bolivia and Peru. And we as Americans are consuming, and Europeans, so much quinoa and other fruits and other nuts and other foods and other vegetables that it's driven the price up so high to the point where the natives in those areas where the quinoa is coming from, they can't afford it. But here's the kicker. Do you know where one of the only quinoa farms in the United States happens to be? Now that we've gone through, the explaining that quinoa is a superfood, that people are paying as much as $7 to $8 for simply a pound of quinoa? In the San Luis Valley, there is a farm that is growing a variety of black quinoa. Open up your sidebar, type in quinoa, San Luis Valley. They brought the quinoa seed over, they grew it, and it mixed with lamb's quarter, and it became a new, wild hybrid of quinoa. It's like a red-black, call it black quinoa, but the picture that they have on their website is quinoa that appears red. So I've seen red quinoa, black quinoa, and that would be like wild rice in comparison to the white rice, which is obviously domesticated. Wild is better and has more nutrition. How could you argue